Hello my beautiful angels, and welcome back to the Feminine Hourglass. Today I really just wanted to take a moment to talk about my feelings on the Black Lives Matter community as a minority, and yeah, that's basically the sum of this video. So I'm just going to get started because I'm a rambler and I don't want this video to be too long, because I think that the message is super important and I want to get it out for anybody that's willing to listen. So let's just get started. Okay, so first off, I just want to say that I pray that God gives me the wisdom and guidance to make this video as accurately and as unbiased as possible, because I don't want to offend anyone, but I want this message to get out into the world. Where do I start? I guess I can start with the beginning of this year and addressing how crazy it's been for everybody. And it hasn't been easy. And this year has essentially shown me that I have privilege, even though I might not see it as a minority. And even though people might tell me that I don't have privilege as a Latina woman, but I do have privilege because I have the privilege that many others don't, such as breathing. Like when the whole coronavirus pandemic hit, I think a lot of us were taken aback because oftentimes when we're ill, we realize that we have many more blessings than we ever consider when we're not sick, such as the ability to breathe. And I think when the pandemic hit, I started realizing my privilege in the world. And then after, most recently, with the abuse of Black lives continuously happening in our country, I will say that I come from a conservative family, and we don't always agree, and that's okay. I wouldn't want to live in a world where everyone agrees, because I think if we lived in a world like that, then we'd stop thinking about many things in the world, and that's not right. We always have to be thinking. Thinking is a good thing. So anyway, I've heard a lot of arguments because I come from a family that poses mostly conservative arguments. So they brought their arguments to me and we typically discuss them, and my older sister in particular was the one that brought up a few key points to me about what she thought she believed, and now she agrees more with my ideologies. Sometimes that's all it takes. It's just a person to talk to you about this stuff. But she told me that, why does it have to be called the Black Lives Movement? Why is it called the Black Lives Movement? Why do Black lives matter? Don't all lives matter? And I told her, I think they do. All lives matter, of course they do. But it's almost, no, it is disrespectful to say all lives matter right after like a Black life is lost. And it's almost used like as a counter argument, like, well, no, all lives matter, so how dare you say only Black lives matter? Like, nobody said only Black lives matter. It's just we're fighting for this movement because it's timely and we have to fight for this movement. Not all lives can matter until Black lives matter, you know? Like, it shouldn't be used as a counter argument when people say like all lives matter, and that's how it's being used. My boyfriend brought up a wonderful example the other day. It's like being at a funeral, and during the eulogy of someone's death, someone stands up during the eulogy and says, well, I just lost my son too, so like, don't you care about that? Does that not matter to you? And it's like, nobody said that it doesn't matter. It's just we're taking a moment for this movement. And another argument is that a bunch of Black Blackout Tuesday on Tuesday of this month. They're upset because they preferred that people use their voices during that time. And I see both sides, right? Because it's important to educate people about why Black Lives Matter and why it's important and what's the history. That is, of course, important. But the way I saw it is almost like a protest. It's a protest against all the people that have taken our Black lives from our communities. And it's also a moment of silence to remember those lives that were lost, because we're all grieving as America. We should all be grieving. This should not be okay. And I just thought that those arguments had to be brought forth, you know? What's another one? Let me think. Because honestly, it makes me so upset when people say, like, don't these lives matter too? Oh, okay. Another thing is that we hear a lot about pro-life people. Okay, let me start this again. We hear a lot from people that claim to be pro-life that all lives matter, not just Black lives or whatever. But we have to take a step back, because you have to reflect on yourself. Are you truly pro-life, or are you not truly pro-life? Or are you just pro-birth, you know? And that's a thing. Like, people will say, yes, I'm pro-life, but then all of a sudden welfare doesn't matter, or the inner cities don't matter, or the immigrants don't matter. They're just coming over here to take our resources or whatever. Okay, so the reason why I brought up welfare and immigration is because a lot of people that are pro-life will typically say they're pro-life until it comes to immigrants' lives where children are separated from their families, or until it comes to people that need welfare to live and feed their families. Suddenly people that are pro-life are totally against those movements, which completely contradicts what it means to be pro-life. Pro-life means that you are pro pre-birth all the way through death, and it shouldn't matter what that life is. Like, if you want to be pro-birth, then that's your own thing, but say it straight, you're pro-birth. If you want to be pro-Caucasian lives only matter, then say it straight, you're pro-Caucasian lives only matter. If you want to be pro-Mexican lives only matter, then say it straight. Point is, we got to be linear, and a lot of people are not. Most recently, it's like Black lives don't matter. You know, the police are doing their job, preventing the looting and this and that. But it's like, you're not actually pro-life if you're saying that Black lives do not matter. If you're pro-life, say it straight. Are you linear from birth, from pre-birth to the end of life, or are you just pro-birth? You know, you have to reflect on yourself. And lastly, the most recent argument that I've heard about is against the people that are looting. And initially I was upset that people are doing that, because they're making our communities look really bad to fit those stereotypes. And then my boyfriend, who is Caucasian, actually told me that the majority of the people inciting the violence at the rallies are actually white people. Okay, just wanted to come on camera to say that it's not all white people, it's racist white people, okay? We have to make that distinction, and remember that not all white people are bad at all. Racism is taught, okay? And not only that, but let's say it was minorities that engaged in these violent riots. One, I'd like to say, if someone else is starting it, then there is something called mob mentality in psychology. And what mob mentality is that people tend to act more aggressive when they're in mobs. So I don't know if you've ever been at a rave or something. I'm trying to think of any example I can, but if you've ever been to a rave or something and you start getting into that mood, that's what mob mentality can do to you. You're just absorbing the mood there. And two, let's say you were at this rally and all of a sudden you just heard a bunch of screaming and attacking against the police or whatever. Maybe, you never know, but maybe you might think that you're under attack, and you might start attacking too, because you want to survive. You want to get out of that situation, and you're willing to fight back for your life. You're willing to fight back for your life. And that's another thing, that it's like, we don't know these people's situation. We don't know. And until we start saying, okay, let me just hear from your side, then we're never going to get to a place where there's equality in the United States. you know? And this goes for both sides, you know? Oh, that's another thing. That's another argument. I'm just thinking of so many. Like, I'm so sorry. This video is completely unstructured, but oh well, we'll keep going. The other day, people were really upset about minorities taking down statues in Washington, D.C. or something like that. And it's like, we should ask ourselves why are these people, why are these communities as a whole striving to take down these monuments? Maybe these monuments impact them in a negative way. Maybe these monuments represent something that we do not want to idolize. For example, I think that one of the monuments taken down was of a racist Confederate soldier. One argument that I heard was, well, I'm not idolizing it, I'm not worshiping these monuments, but it's a part of history, we shouldn't forget it, right? Well, I agree with that completely. We shouldn't. We should pass down that history. It should never, ever be written off our history books. But the problem with having those monuments is, like, for a Christian person, let's say you worship God and then you have a satanic monument in your house. I don't know many Christian people that do that. Like, I'm sorry, but I just don't. So it's the same concept, you know? You have to be linear with your thoughts and keep it straight. And that's just my mentality. And honestly, as video goes on, I'm getting a little bit more haughty with the topic because it's something that I'm super passionate about. People's lives matter. People's lives are at stake right now. And we really have to try to listen to both sides. And I know that sometimes I'm a hothead and I believe that my way is always right. But for both sides, I think it's important that we take a moment to think of the other side. And then once you've done that, to remember that we're all people, and what would you do in that situation? You know, let's say you were in that situation, what would you do? And not be so quick as to judge. Okay, so okay, I'm calmed down. But to conclude this video, I just wanted to say that I think today it's best if we go out into the world and do something good. Most recently, I heard a story about a woman that was in need of a babysitter for her kids, and she couldn't go to work because she didn't have a babysitter. That honestly broke my heart because people are trying to make a living in the US and they can't because there's a pandemic going on. And I'm not saying open up all businesses because I'm not for that, and that's a whole nother topic that I'm not going to get into right now. But us as people, I think that we should try to help in some way, and I'm going to try to help as well because I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't do anything. But I'm going to do my best to help, and you can help too. Just like in the most random things, like calling your neighbor to make sure that they're still okay, you know, or checking on that elderly person down the street to make sure they're okay. You know, like, we can do things for each other, and I think that that's the most important message we can think of right now. And of course, try to be the least judgmental as possible and good to people, because at the end of the day, being good to other people only makes you happier, and that's all.